So, what is the biggest lie in miniature painting? That's simple. That the types of paint you use don't matter. It matters 100%. And let me explain why. Because for the last week, I have been racking my brain trying to figure out a way to do things better. And I think ultimately, I just got to get better paint. Let's talk about why. Earlier this week, I started painting this Warmachine model. And from the second that I opened it, I thought, this thing is amazing. This thing's great. I want to paint it. I want it to look amazing. I want to do it justice is really what I wanted to do, which I think as miniature painters, we all have that. We have that miniature that we're like, oh man, that thing is amazing. Let's make it look amazing. And then you do the best that you can. Or you wait because you don't think you're good enough yet, which I advise against. You can always buy another model. You can always repaint a model if you need to. So get it on the table, paint it, right? But I had one of those models in my hand. It's 3D printed, if you didn't know that. The Warmachine models, some of them are 3D printed. And it's the newer material that's soft enough to cut and do a little bit of kit bashing. So I wanted to do that. And so I set out on that adventure, cutting it off the base, moving things around, making a cool new base for it. And that's when things started going downhill. And it all started with the priming. Okay. I use just normal primer that you can find at the store. I don't use Citadel. I don't use Vallejo. I don't use any of the big brand primers. And honestly, I've never had an issue with my primer. Okay. So, priming, yes, it can be an issue. I used to try and prime through my airbrush with the Vallejo primer, and it never worked right. Okay, it never worked right. And I guess I should get this point across big time. First of all, is that spending more money isn't always better for this. Okay, the more expensive paint isn't always the better paint, and that's not what I'm pitching here. I'm pitching that you need to find the better paint. Whether that's from talking to other people or whatever. Find the paints that work and use those. And yeah, in some situations, they're definitely going to be more expensive. But in mine, like I said, my primer, great. Never had an issue with just like the Rust-Oleum flat primer. It's like $6 a can. So I've been through like 7 or 8 cans, and they've all done really, really well. The white, not so much, but the black, yes. The white sucks. Don't buy it. The black's good. Okay, but that brings me to my second point. Zenithal highlights. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a zenithal highlight is, a zenithal highlight is basically when you take a lighter colored paint and you paint it across an angle of your miniature. It's basically supposed to reflect where the sun would be. So if you have the sun at noon, it would be straight down from the top. If it has an, afternoon or early morning, you can do an angle or whatever. And anyway, you zenithal prime it so that when you put the paint on, it'll naturally be lighter on those parts that have been highlighted. First off, I'm not even confident that zenithal highlights work. If you have a really good paint with a high pigment and you put it over that, it's just going to cover it up anyway. Will it be a little bright? Maybe. And if you thin your paints down, sure. Okay, but those are all the little factors. If you want the zenithal highlight to work, you either have to be using contrast paints, you have to thin your paints, and then on top of all of that, the zenithal highlight has to be good. Okay, and like I said, my white primer that I was using to highlight, it sucks, and it speckled everything, which, if you've ever tried, you've seen this before. Okay, and so right off the bat, I was frustrated because now I got this nicely primed, horribly zenithal highlighted miniature, and I was like, it's okay. I'm going to do metallics. I'm going to go over the top of everything. It's not going to be a big deal. And so I'm going to be painting that in the background while I talk about this too, just so you don't have to, obviously, so you don't have to just stare at me when you can look at this fabulous paint job that I did. So anyway, zenithal highlights, I'm not confident that they work, but I've never had a good paint to use it on. Honestly, everything up to this point that I've been painting, I have been using these. Apple Barrel. You know, the stuff that you find for 50 cents a bottle, because I'm a hobbyist on a budget, you know, and I needed cheap paints. I do have a couple Citadel paints, which I used as many as I could for this, just because, you know, I got them with the little starter pack that you get with Warhammer. And there's a big difference. The craft paints, and I want to point something out. The craft yellow, this thing is freaking amazing. Like, it covers so well, okay? The craft black covers really well. Some of the blues, a couple of the colors in the 50 cent range work awesome. But some of them are crap. Most of them are crap. And that's where the Citadel paint came in. I wanted to do that red. You know, I wanted to do that Adeptus Mechanicus type of red on this guy. I mean, he's got a spider robot body. I wanted some red on it. You know, it's good because you can hide the blood in the red. Anyway. And it made a huge difference because everything that I've been painting has been taking me 2, 3, 4 coats just to get that nice, solid coat that I wanted. And with this Citadel Mephiston red, it took 1. Now, could I get the same quality using my apple barrels, using that 4 coats? Sure. Yes, you can totally do that. I'm not saying that you can't do this. I'm not saying that the best painters in the world can't do the same job that they would with crap paints that they do with good paints. But here's the difference. The difference is it's going to take you 2, 3, 4, 5 times as long to do it.
It's not worth it.
And you might be thinking, well, that's not a big deal. Why does that matter? I'll tell you why it matters. Because if you're painting 100 units for an army, or 80 units, or 40 units, or 20 units for an army, that means that your painting time will skyrocket. And what is that directly equal to? Simple. Not wanting to participate in the hobby, not wanting to finish painting, not having the time to do so. It takes the fun out of it. And take this from a guy who's been painting for a year and just wants to sit down and paint something in an hour and a half to 2 hours instead of having it take 4 to 8. It's hard to get better at painting when it's taking you so long to do it. And that might sound like, you know, you're getting tons of practice, but you're not getting good practice. You're getting crappy practice that is just not going to help you in the long run. Sure, your brush control is probably going to be friggin' amazing, but that's it. You're not going to be doing those highlights because you haven't had time to do those highlights. By the time you're done with those base coats and you have everything on there, all that you want to do is throw on, you know, streak and grime, throw on a wash and call it a day. And contrast paints are an anomaly to this. And I mean that you can paint and make things look amazing with contrast paints, and it only takes a minute. And I have no idea if there's great ones or horrible ones. From what I understand, most of them are pretty similar. If I'm wrong, totally tell me. I mean, I need to get some contrast paints. So first off, if you know what's the best contrast paint, let me know below. Love to know what is the best contrast paint out there. But moving on from that, all the YouTubers that I follow say the same thing about contrast paints. You're not going to get better at painting using contrast paints. They don't use them in their really good stuff. And I hate to say it, but I want my stuff to be in that level. I'm not saying Golden Demon, that's years in the future, if ever. But I want my paints to look good and have that blending and have that shine, and just to be able to look at it and think, man, this isn't a plastic toy. This is a freaking piece of art that I'm going to show off, and I'm going to show everybody I know because it took me a set amount of hours and it looks amazing. So yeah. The biggest lie is that the paints you use don't matter. The paints, the primers, the washes, the contrasts, they matter. So try and find the good ones. And if you have a good one that you like in any of those categories, let me know below. I mean, I don't want like a list of like every color, because that's the sad thing is like you can buy an entire paint range. You know, you can get all the Vallejo, and sure, most of them are great, but maybe there's 5 or 6 that are just terrible. Okay, so don't give me 100 lists of paints, you know, just give me your general thoughts. I would love to hear them. And following what I said about contrast paints, do you think they hurt you as a painter? I haven't used them. You know, I've made my own kind of and worked with them, and I think they're cool, but I would rather just paint stuff and get it done than use the contrast paints, and maybe that's bad. But let me know. Let me know if you think it's counterproductive to getting better. And hopefully people can come to this channel years in the future and find some good stuff to do their hobby with so that they enjoy their hobby and that's not something they just drop out of. Because that's what I want. And I hope that's what you want too. And if you want to help me in that, like, subscribe to the channel. I'm shameless, but that's okay. I want this to get out there. I want people to see this. And I hope that it will help them. And I hope that you can help me as I keep on this journey, because I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to get some better paints down the line. If you like Warmachine, next week's video is going to be about their new 2-player starter box. It's phenomenal. It's awesome. It's game-changing. Follow, subscribe, click that little bell thing down at the bottom, and it'll notify you when that video comes out. It's going to be a good one, and it's kind of a game-changing thing for Warmachine, and I hope it's the step that it needs in this direction to make it a big, incredible, and good game all over again. So, please, check that out next week. And as always, here at Polsgate Games, we're about making your gaming experience the best it can be. So let us help you do that. And don't spend so much time building your world, which will take forever with bad paint, that you forget to spend some time in it. Until next time.